I only have a few minutes, but I wanted to give an update on my progress on Name Sans and something kind of fun that I'm doing and kind of, I've had to make it fun, I guess. So it's kerning. In making italics, there's a very surprising amount of rekerning you have to do, particularly for things that have diagonals. So this demonstration doesn't include any kerning. It's turned off here. This is Name Sans Ultra Italic display, by the way. So kerning is totally off. And then if we turn on kerning, all of this kerning, these numbers are symmetrical from the uprights carried over. And you can see the AV is actually working fairly well. Looks pretty good to me. It's funny where it works and where it doesn't. It's possible I've even fixed it already. I'll explore that in a moment. In, say, middle weights, when the spacing is close, the AVA really didn't work. But here you can see that happening in the like diagonals and rounds. So the VO and the YO is just terribly way off. It looks, it is way closer here than here. And maybe if you were comparing the overall volume of space in these two areas, they would be the same. But particularly when the spacing is tight, I think the human eye starts to rely on sort of close proximity more than volume in judging kerning and spacing rhythm. So that's what makes it kind of tricky. And you always have to think a little bit as you're kerning. So the way I've made this a little less painful for myself is, one, the big thing is that I use MetricsMachine for kerning. So this is an excellent tool available in RoboFont, and it allows you to have pair lists where you kind of scroll through and, you can go back and forth. And the UI by itself is very good, very thoughtful. You can make pair lists. So for instance, where's the pair list builder? If I want to, these pair lists are what you scroll through. So let's say I want to throw A and O on one side and let's say the diagonals on another side. And I want the flipped versions, and I want to avoid duplicates, and I want to compress groups, which is especially important if I just select like all of the uppercase, including all of these accent marks. Yeah, so then I can compile this, and it makes kind of a combinatorial pair list for me, which I can like load in, and then I can scroll through and check these things out. So that is very helpful alone, right? You see that I can flip this and okay, weird cut, but I was recording and then for some reason my audio just muted. I don't think I hit any buttons to do that. I just think it was a glitch. Hopefully it doesn't happen again. I was talking about how you can make a simple pair list in Prepulator. Well, yesterday I made a slightly larger pair list, and so you can see it here. It's most of or many of the diagonals and round shapes. And it's just kind of like a minimum viable kerning list for kind of eliminating the majority of this problem as a current pass, because I'm trying to basically get a version of this font out to people that will deliver a ton of improvements, but not be like necessarily the total end game for this font. I don't know. We'll see. I probably will do quite a bit more kerning as well. All right, but that's not what this is about. This kerning pair list, you can save the list from that kerning pair list builder. And then something I find very useful is just to open it up in a text editor. It's just a list of pairs like this that generate this list. And I do things like, for instance, and I don't know if this is big enough to really show up on the video that you're watching, but probably. I do things like I'll select the first instance of an O and then hit Command-Shift-L in VS Code here to select all instances like that. And then I'll hit like Command Shift right to select the whole line. And then I'll cut and paste it at the very top of the list. And there's probably a smarter way to do that with Python or something. But basically, this is just a quick way to get all of the, say, O's and N's at the top of my list, because I like to start a kerning list with the control characters that I'll be kind of spacing everything else against. And that way I can, dial in these relationships. Like here, I kind of already did a little bit of this in the previous recording where things failed slightly. And maybe, maybe it could be 1 or 2 over. So yeah, I was kind of going through and showing that. The other 2 things I sort of wanted to talk about a little bit is my current kerning controller here. I've posted online about this on social media, but to explain it slightly further, this is a Keebio BDN9. Keeb.io is the company, BDN9 is the macropad name. And it's kind of a DIY kit that I soldered a little bit on my own. Got some mechanical keyboard switches, and it's got 3 encoders. The 3 encoders are really useful because one goes in 10 increments, 5 increments, and 1 increment. And that's really helpful because, like, all right, let me remember. 152 was the place I found that I like to put. You can go pretty fast with the leftmost. You can go a little slower with the middle one, and then you can really dial it in with the rightmost one. So let's get back to 152. Yeah. Other things like these 6 keys are useful things. So like this is just the character F. This is like up and down to go through my pair list here. This is Control S to save the font. And then this one pulls up MetricsMachine. Yeah, so it's pretty handy. I really like it. If you are like, it's definitely not necessary. You can just use any keyboard to do basically all these things. I do feel like it helps me get into the flow because I can sort of sit back a little more and just with one hand kind of, go through these things. And I like the knobs. Maybe it's just a novelty thing. Hard to say for sure. But if you do want to, that's my video. If you do want to copy it, I've configured kind of custom code for this thing. The firmware is a system called QMK that is used to customize lots of different mechanical keyboards. And it's a little confusing to understand at first. So this took me a little bit of research to figure out. And I'm not going to go through the whole thing. There are guides on like Keebio's website, for instance. But I will share in the description a link to this. This is my kind of fork of the firmware for the BDN9 with a custom key map for MetricsMachine specifically. Later, I'll probably do another custom key map for Glyphs app because that would have different shortcuts, but sometimes I'm kerning over there. So yeah, in the long run, I'll probably do that. I haven't yet. Yeah. The other thing I was let me show some examples of this. Where were we? We were kind of at like, I don't know, hard to say for sure. I wanted to do these just because they're a good example. I've probably talked about this before, but this is a super awesome tool as an addition to MetricsMachine. This is called MM2SpaceCenter, originally developed by CJ Dunn, and then I've contributed. Ryan Bugden has contributed. I think Wei Huang has contributed, and yeah, it just goes through the macOS dictionary and tries to find words for your current pair. And while I was recording that second segment and my audio was cut out again, so just a fun time of recording. I'm about to give up, but I'll try to finish this out. I reinstalled the driver and restarted my computer. That fixed it in a test. Hopefully it fixes it here. So let's see. Yeah, I was kind of explaining, I believe, the pair list and how you can go through that. And right, the kind of, and sorry, I was also just explaining the MetricsMachine to SpaceCenter, which is super essential. So, you might be wondering about auto kerning, and I feel like that's a different video. Short answer is Kern On for Glyphs app does a pretty darn good job if you kind of follow their recommendations and do a little bit of work on your end. I've used that for a couple projects, and with a bit of work, it's really good. I'm not using that for Name Sans because I'm really working hard to make this like a top tier font. And that's sorry, Kernon just like can kind of be a little bit particular, but it like has opinions, which is good. But I want my opinions to be in Name Sans, and certain ways that I'm kerning the display versus the text styles, for instance. I kind of have different strategies. Yeah, so that's the short answer. For this, I want to kern it manually, and for manual kerning, it's nice to have a kind of specialized controller. And yeah, it feels nice, sounds kind of nice, for what it is. Anyway, I've got a lot of kerning to do, so I should stop procrastinating and get to kerning. Looks like I need to probably kern the entire font because I keep on seeing just various things like the YS that are just off. So yeah, kind of a surprise, honestly. That's, I guess, my main takeaway from this process. Like, wow, making an italic version of a font, you really have to rekern it, particularly if it's a display font and close together and things. Yeah, so that is, yeah, that's about all I need to say. If you're making a font, I hope it's going great. If you're using fonts, thank you. Check out my fonts if you want at aerotype.com. And I've got an update for Name Sans coming right around the corner in a couple of weeks, really, on future fonts. So the price will jump a little bit. If you're interested in it, get it now. I realize that it's not really at a like impulse buy price anymore, but I do have a couple of fonts that still are. So check those out too. Yeah, hope you're doing great. Thanks. Bye.